Okay. Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with a special guest. This is my mother, and we thought we would do a special Cloak and Dagger Christmas wrap-up because my mother has been out here with me for a couple weeks, and we went on a little vacation together with my husband, and in doing so, we participated in the Cloak and Dagger Christmas. Now, I haven't been able to film because we've actually been, on vacation. And so I thought this would be a nice way to do like a final wrap up so we could talk a little bit about the books we read. Now, my mother is a mystery. This is her genre. This is her thing. So I'm really happy to be participating with her and having her join in and reading some books that I'm reading, and we could talk about them together. So let's get started. I'm going to start, we'll just kind of go back and forth and talk about the books that we read. So the first book that I read was The Trembling Hills by Phyllis A. Whitney. Now, this was a read-along that the Cloak and Dagger Christmas gals put together. So everyone was kind of reading it. Now, you've read Phyllis A. Whitney before, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you like her work?
I like her books, but it's been a long time, so
yeah.
I haven't read anything recently.
I was impressed when I looked at her back catalog. Now, she's lived everywhere. It seems like she lived all over the world. I had no idea. And she seemed to be a really prolific writer. And so that was I had no idea. That was my first time I've ever read anything of hers. And I really liked it. The story was set in San Francisco, which was great because I live in the Bay Area. And it was set around the time of the Great Earthquake. And so the Trembling Hills, get it? That's what it's about. But it's interesting because I didn't really find a mystery there per se. So from a Cloak and Dagger kind of mystery perspective, there wasn't really one there. It was more of a coming of age, young woman trying to find her. I guess the mystery is who is she and who is her family and how she's trying to find her connection to her family and her family tree. But it wasn't a mystery in the sense of a murder, which, sometimes it's nice. You don't always need a dead body if you're going to have a mystery. So the first book that you read was what?
Jade Dragon Mountain.
By who?
By Elsa Hart.
Perfect. And so this is a book that I went to the local library and I just grabbed a few that I thought we would both like. And when I read the synopsis to my mother, she was like, "Oh, I want that one. So it's a story of the main character is a imperial librarian. His name is Li Du, set in 1708 in China. And his mentor did something unspeakable and was hanged. Hanged?
I think, yes.
Yes, he was executed. He's dead. So
right.
let's put it that way. And then because he was his mentor, Li Du also was sent into exile. Better safe than sorry, I guess is what they say. And so when Li Du is in exile, he's kind of like this roving scholar through China. He's stuck in Jade Dragon Mountain, and he needs to get his papers in order to proceed to the next town. And while he's stuck there, he finds out that there's the emperor is actually coming to that town for the lunar eclipse. And there's all of these things that are going on in the town. There's all of this excitement and everything. And a murder happens. And because of his vast knowledge, because he's a librarian, so he knows much more than the average person, Li Du is asked to stay and solve the crime. Now, the tension in the story is that he wants to get out of there before the emperor comes. So there's a little timeline happening there. So tell me a little bit about what you thought of this book.
I loved it because I loved the character. Li Du was very interesting, not boisterous or anything like that, but able to make friends, and everybody seemed to like him. I loved the cultural aspects of the differences between what was expected of the royal court and also of the people, the peasants in the town, and what they believed and so forth. But I just found it fascinating, and I loved it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be reading it next, so I'm really excited. And what I like about this one, it filled the challenge prompt number 2 for I Saw 3 Ships, which is to read a book in a location that you don't normally read about. And you don't read a lot of books set in China, do you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So perfect. So the book that I read next was The King's Justice, and this is by E.M. Powell, and this is the first in a series that I haven't read before. It's the Stanton and Barley number 1. And what's interesting is this is set in 1176 during King Henry II's reign. And we've got one of the gentlemen is kind of a clerk who's in charge of the official things that have to happen in court. And then the other man is just a messenger. And so he's someone who has to go out and get stuff done. Well, they get paired up together through these unusual set of circumstances, and they have to go out and are called to solve a mystery and to be there to administer the king's justice, hence the title. And while they're there, they realize that things are not what this lord of this little fiefdom has claimed, and the lord just wants to kill the guy that he claims has done the crime. And there's an escape. And so the person that they've been told has created this heinous crime escapes, and other murders start to happen. And so it's a really great story. I really love the time period because you don't really read a lot of historical mysteries set in that time period. And it was very hard to figure out who was actually doing these murders and what was happening, and it was very frightening also because it was during the times when the justice was they would throw you in the lake, and if you floated, that means you were innocent. But if you ended up actually swimming, then you were guilty, and they were going to hang you anyway. So either way, you're kind of out of luck in that sense. So really great. I will continue to move forward with this series because I found the characters really great, the time frame really interesting, and the pace was fantastic in the book. So I'll be continuing with that. Next up, and that will fit number 3, which is Silent Night, where there's an unknown adversary. So that was for the Cloak and Dagger prompt number 3. Next up, you read one of my favorites. I'm so glad you finally got to read this. I've been bugging you for so long. The Widows of Malabar Hill by Sujata Macy. For those of you who don't know about this book, this is kind of like a booktube darling book. It's set in, I think it's in the 20s in India, and it's at the height of British colonial rule, and things are starting to change, and there looks like there's going to be a shifting of power. So it's a very interesting time period to be in this area. And the main character is just fantastic. Her name's Parveen Mistry. And she is a young woman who is very smart, very, very well educated, who bucks tradition and finds a man that she wants to marry. So it's a love marriage, not an arranged marriage. Convinces her family that this is the right thing for her, marries this man and has to move away into his town. She finds that her life there is not the one that she expected, and she's restricted severely by her new mother-in-law. And so much so that she is beaten and isn't she held captive, and the conditions are just absolutely terrible. And what she knows about the world and her brain and how smart she is, she's not going to stand for it. So she ends up fleeing, and her father takes her back. But what's interesting is that she's now an outcast because she's not really divorced. She's still married. But she can't really talk about that, kind of between worlds. She's not eligible, but she's not free either. But because of her knowledge, her father takes her, and he's a lawyer, and so she is added to his retinue of people that work for him, because she has a very, very unique opportunity and service. She can talk to women in the ways that men can't talk to women in this culture. And so she's able to, as kind of an investigator, she's helping to kind of propel these cases forward. She's able to have really in-depth conversations with women in very unique areas. And this whole book is centered around there's an estate issue. One of their clients has passed away, and he has 3 wives and 3 families, and they all live in the same home, but in seclusion. And the man who's been kind of the person put in charge of the estate is a scoundrel and suspect. And so they're trying to figure out how to divide up the assets of this estate in a fair way for the women. And as she's meeting the women and talking with the women, she realizes that things are not as they seem, or as they maybe should be for this home. So it's a very interesting story with a lot of cultural aspects that are kind of pulled in. What did you think about this one?
I loved it. I thought Pervine was such a strong-willed character. You just loved her, that she was able to take on everything and not worry about the consequences. But it was also very informative about the culture and the norms of what was expected in the classes, their caste society. So I thought that was very interesting, but I loved it.
Oh, so glad. I've been wanting her to read this for so long. So this will fit the mystery you've been meaning to get to. And really, it's a mystery I've been meaning you to get to.
I know.
But see, you did it. And I had her read Witch Elm by Tana French, because we both love Tana French, and she hated it. And so I was really, really in trouble for a while with that one. I was suspect. My opinions were, she was giving me side-eye to every single recommendation after that. So I feel like I redeemed myself a little bit.
You have.
Okay.
You have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, for me, I read a book that I've been meaning to read for a long time, and that is Miss Marple #1, Murder at the Vicarage by Dame Agatha Christie. I had never read it, and I decided to do this one as an audiobook. And I know I still have to get you on audiobooks, but this was done as like a cast. And so it was like it was play acted, as if you were listening to an old radio program. And it was so good. It was so good. And you could just hear the tension when Miss Marple walked into the room, and everyone just kind of like, oh, that woman again, you know. And the actors who portrayed all of the cast were fantastic. You just really get a sense of the heft of what the material that she was able to put together, and you could see how as a first story this had legs and was gonna move forward. You know, you just see why she's the best. So I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I gave it a 4, which for me, for a mystery, for genre fiction, is really, really high. And then last on for our Hawaii vacation, you read the latest in the Louise Penny series, the series that you introduced me to, and then I rave about to everyone on BookTube, and that's A Better Man. And so in this episode, we go back to Three Pines, where everything seems to happen, and we're following Gamache, and there is an incident that kind of a catastrophic incident that's happening as the cold and the snow is starting to melt, and it's going to provide so much water that it's going to flood, and the flood is going to be actually catastrophic. They talk about the 100-year flood. They think it's going to be to that extent, if not more. And so it becomes a really big problem. And as they're trying to figure out what to do, because they're in the police, and the police have to work with other elements of the local government to figure this out, they find a body. And then they start to proceed to follow through on what's happening and what happened to this body, who this woman is. And at the same time, there's all these backstories of all the characters that you start to love in Three Pines, and all of their kind of interconnected stories. So what did you think about that?
Just getting reacquainted with all those characters I love, and just waiting to see what kind of escapade they're going to get into now. I just love the characters, and so I thought it was enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. What do you like about the characters so much? I mean, what makes this one so different than the other types of books, or even other types of series?
They're so strange.
yeah, that's good. Yeah,
but yet when you think about a town, Three Pines, and nobody knows where it is or anything, and then all these people live there, and they have the inn there that they all congregate there, and it's just, you just want to be able to go there and be a part of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just a good feeling when you read about them. And they all are such different characters, but yet they all respect and love each other. So
mm-hmm. That's true. That's very true. Mm-hmm. There is a sense of camaraderie, and some of it you feel it's because of the intense weather that they're always under.
Maybe.
You know, with the winters, because mm-hmm. it's outside of Quebec. But I think there's also just something about the people that gravitate there.
Mm-hmm.
I always like that series because I think Gamache, the leadership lessons and the intelligence with which he approaches the mysteries, as well as guiding the other people in the sûreté and bringing up other detectives is always so interesting, and I love so much.
Such an important part of this book too,
mm-hmm.
is what he felt, and how he felt his other officers
mm-hmm.
should be and should do, and so that was illuminating too, that we hadn't heard or read about mm-hmm. in any of the other series. So.
Yeah, it keeps getting better. I can't
mm-hmm.
believe we have to wait another year for at least another one. Oh, it's so
right.
frustrating. So those are all the books that we finished while we were on vacation. As you can see, I am my mother's daughter, and she reads a ton too. That was kind of the primary thing that we did, was move from the pool to the beach, from the beach to the pool, meanwhile carrying our books the entire time. What are you reading now?
I forget. What did I say I was going to?
Well, you're going to read the Tana French.
Oh, that's right.
This next one is The Likeness. And so you've always liked the Dublin Murder Squad series.
Right. And I've always liked her.
Yes.
But
that was a one.
Yeah.
Don't hold that one against her or me, please.
All right.
I think you'll enjoy. I think you'll go back to falling back in love with Tana French with that one. Okay. And then I'm reading my number 5 for the 5th prompt, which is I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, which is where you read a book on a Christmas mystery. I'm reading A Christmas Party by Georgette Heyer. And, Georgette Heyer is, Mel introduced her to me. I'd read some of her Regency romances, and they were a little too tame for me. A bunch of he touched my glove, and I almost painted, kind of a little too sedate. But I love her mysteries. I am finding that this one is a little bit tedious. The setup is fantastic. It is a Christmas party where you've got the main uncle, who is kind of like the patriarch. He's a single man, and he lives in this mansion, and he's very wealthy. And he has his brother and sister-in-law who live there with him, and they just kind of sponge off of him. Nathan is expected to leave his fortune to one of his 3 nieces and nephews, and it's going to be his nephew, Stephen. And Stephen is just a jerk. He's just an absolute contrarian. He does everything he can to just be an ass. They all love to fight, so they all love just being disagreeable with each other. So it's kind of seen as the norm. And Stephen brings his girlfriend, fiance, and she's just a bubbly idiot, gold digger. So you have all of those typical type of things that exist in kind of the English country house kind of setups. What I find a little tedious is they keep repeating the story over and over. As each new character comes in, they do like this repetition of what happened before. I'm like, yeah, I get it. We don't need 379 pages where we go over the same facts over and over and over again without anything new illuminating them. So I'm more than halfway done. I'm going to knock it out today and be done with it, and that'll cover that. So what's left for me from Cloak and Dagger Christmas will be a work in translation, which is O Tannenbaum. The second one, which is I Saw Three Ships, which is based in a location. And then number 4, the Bleak Midwinter. Maybe I could take this for the Bleak Midwinter as well. I could double up. So we'll see if I complete all of them. But I think put together, we've completed them at least that way. So, well, that's it. Thank you so much, Mom, for and allowing me to film you. I really, I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching. Bye.